Here's a really fabulous song that fits beautifully under the fingers for a single acoustic guitar. The original, of course, has Gillian Welch playing her acoustic, and then David Rawlins is filling in with these details, little fiddly bits and bobs that almost bring the song to the edge of chaos. It's a fantastic atmosphere. So my arrangement is going to be a little bit of a kind of best of, I suppose, but mainly it's going to be based on what she's doing. I've got a capo on the 5th fret. I will look at the chords, they're simple enough, and the layout of the song, of course. We'll look at some strumming, and then we'll look at a picking pattern or two that you can try too. So let's kick off with the intro. We have a bar of E minor. And straight away, I'm going to say we've got 4 beats in the bar at a fairly slow tempo, so I'm going to strum 16ths. That kind of a thing. And feel free to miss strums out just by not making contact with the strings, obviously, or creating up strum accents. That kind of a thing. Anyway, we've got this bar of E minor, then a bar of C, and she plays C with a finger on the 3rd fret of the 6th string, so it's really C over G. That's just how she does that. So I'm putting my little finger where normally my 3rd finger would go, so the 3rd finger's free to go down at the bottom string. Then I've got something called A sus2, and that's basically like a standard A shape with an open 2nd string. You could think of it as an E minor shape just moved up a string. And then I'm back to C. The whole of the intro, E minor, C, A sus2, back to C, and that just repeats. You may notice, you see me do this often if you watch my videos, if there's an E minor, especially at the beginning of a section, bringing the thumb the wrong way up the string, just by starting it a bit early and spreading it out so you can hear the individual strings. I quite like to do that. You can do it on other chords too, but it's never quite as impressive as it is on a nice big open E minor chord. Okay, and before we go on, there's lots of opportunity for adding little details here, such as hammer-ons. Let's just talk about that. Essentially, I'm taking off a finger that would be fretting a string and then bringing it down to where it ought to be without re-picking it. That kind of a thing. You might do that as part of your strumming, so you might just dig in with your strumming. I use my fingers to strum down and thumb to strum up, so might do that kind of a thing. You might do one finger at a time, or you might even do both fingers for that shape of E minor. And it's just a question of firming up the strumming hand so you can be a bit more accurate, a bit more precise, and isolate those strings. You could of course use your thumb to pick them as you're strumming. So there I'm just catching the finger or the thumb onto the strings individually. The C chord. Because we're really kind of in the key of G. I mean, disregarding the fact that the capo's on the 5th fret, the strings of the guitar are sort of in G, E minor-y sort of area. So I can hammer on and off those strings. Off is called a pull-off if I create a note like that, but hammer-ons and pull-offs on pretty much any of the strings using the chord shapes that we've got. Here's the A. And she definitely does this at some point on the C chord. That 1st finger's coming away to play a C major 7. So we've already got something a bit more like the original. That repeats. Okay, into the verse. And the verse kicks off in a very similar way. We have our E minor, C, A sus2, and then the 4th bar we have A sus2, but now I'm going to add a C in the bass. I'm bringing my little finger across to the 3rd fret of the 5th string for that. And so that's our 4 bars: E minor, C, A sus2, A sus2 over C, and they just repeat. So we have this. Then remember when you come to me, and again, I'm the pretender. Now what I'm supposed to be. Now we reach a straight A minor, followed by C. But who could know, that we have G and D, that I'm a traitor? D, and then A minor and C again. Time's a revelator. Okay, so that's the whole of the first verse. The second verse begins exactly the same way, so I'm going to sing that through. It just ends slightly differently. So as far as the first 12 bars are concerned, they're exactly the same. Here we go, E minor. They caught the Canadian, left me a mule to ride. E minor. Fortune lady, or A sus2, came along and she walked beside A minor. Every word seemed to date her. Time's a revelator. Now it's our A sus2, later, and then 2 bars of C. So if I go from the D, time's a revelator. C, revelator. And we finish on a D. So that's the second verse. The third verse is exactly the same, but between them we have our opening instrumental, our repeating 4 bars of E minor, C, A sus2, and C, where David Rawlins does his thing. Now the fourth verse begins exactly the same way as the others, and it's just extended a little bit more even than the second and third verses. So I guess the simplest thing would be if I just play it through and you see how that works out. Even the valley, fucking out of sight, back to Cali. I can sleep at every night. A minor. Watch the waves and move the faders. Time's a revelator. 2 bars of C, just like the second and third verse, is the revelator. D. Now we have A minor. Queen of face to see, G and D, an imitator. Time's a revelator. And then we go into a final instrumental where we have 5 times through our 4-bar intro section. Let's just look at, before we finish, at a potential picking pattern you could try with this. It's quite simple, but it might create a little bit more interest, especially if you want to include a second guitar, for instance. As usual, I'm going to put my picking fingers, first, second and third fingers on the top 3 strings, first finger on the third string, second finger on the second string, and my third finger's up on the top string there. My thumb is going to be really wherever the bass note of the chord is. So for E minor, it's going to be down there. And my pattern is in 8ths. I'm going to play thumb, 1, 2, 1, then 3, 1, 2, 1. Again on E minor. But on the third beat, I'm going to include another thumb note. I'm going to come up to the 4th string. you'll notice I'm deliberately separating out those two. You don't need to be too precious about getting them exactly together. In fact, maybe it's a bit more musical to have it slightly ragged. And to separate the thumb note with that top string note, I'm not delaying the top string. I'm bringing the bass note in a little bit early. Just exaggerating it a bit there so you can hear. And it can be quite a subtle thing, but that's how that works. To do the same pattern on C, of course my bass note is now on the 5th string. Even though she's playing C over G, C is really the root of the chord, so I'm going to move my thumb to there. And so on. The only chord that we've got to think a bit more about is the D chord, because my thumb, of course, is already on the open 4th string. I don't really want to repeat that bass note, so I might bring my thumb down to the 5th string, which works perfectly well. Now, for a variation of that, or an alternative, rather than thumb 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, in the second half, 3, 1, 2, 1, you could switch the order of the first and second fingers. 3, 2, 1, 2. Having to think about this. Thumb 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 2, with the added thumb note. That's on a G, for instance, E minor. Whichever one of those feels more comfortable, more intuitive under your fingers, it really doesn't matter, and you can switch and swap, of course, and you can add hammer-ons and so on. Okay, to finish off then, I'm going to play the last verse into the final ending section. And the outro is just the intro instrumental played 5 times through. I may not play all of those. I'll pick a bit and I'll strum a bit and we'll see how we get on.
Back to Cali, I can sleep out every night. Watch the waves move the faders. Time's a revelator. Time's a revelator.